Get your things. I want you out of this house by morning. Your dad doesn't yell it. That's what throws you off. He says it low, staring at the salt shaker instead of at you. And the flatness of it lands harder than 20 minutes of shouting ever did. You've heard him angry before. You've heard doors slammed, threats made at 11 at night that dissolved by the next morning's cereal bowl. 2 years ago, it was the same thing over a dented bumper, and by the following weekend, nobody even brought it up. So the first thing you feel isn't fear. It's tired disbelief, the reflex of watching a rerun you already know the ending to. He doesn't mean it. Nobody means it after 3 hours of the same fight on repeat. You go up to your room anyway, because staying downstairs feels like standing too close to a fire that hasn't decided if it's going out. You sit on the edge of your bed. Your charger is still in the wall. Your shoes are still by the door, laces tied the way you left them this morning. The digital clock on your nightstand reads 11:42. Every object in the room is quietly insisting that nothing has actually changed. Then you notice something has. Nobody comes up. Nobody knocks. The TV downstairs stays off. The house goes quiet in a way that isn't the sound of a fight cooling. It's the sound of a decision already made. That silence is where this really starts. Not the sentence. What happens after it, when nobody takes it back? Getting kicked out rarely happens in one clean movement. For most people, it's a sequence. A warning, a deadline, a bag, a door, and a stretch of nights that don't feel like they belong to any home. What follows traces that sequence the way it actually unfolds for thousands of teenagers every year. Not a rule book. Just the shape of it, level by level, level 1. The first warning: at this stage you still have a bedroom, and that fact is doing more work than you realize. Your posters are still on the wall. Your Wi-Fi still connects. Nothing has physically moved, which is exactly why the threat doesn't fully register. You're standing inside the evidence that it hasn't happened yet. You replay the sentence, cross-checking it against every other threat that's fizzled out before. The phone that got confiscated forever and came back in 2 days. The curfew that was the last straw and wasn't. You build the case for why tonight is the same. Everyone's tired, it's late. People say things they take back in daylight. What you don't clock right away is how your own behavior has already shifted. You're quieter at breakfast. You flinch a little when a door closes downstairs. You check your phone more than usual, half waiting for a text that softens things, half waiting for nothing at all. You avoid being alone in a room with the parent who said it, not because you think it's happening again tonight, but because some instinct in you has stopped trusting the room the way it used to. By the second morning, you notice yourself scanning faces at the breakfast table, the way you'd read weather. A raised eyebrow means something. A closed door means something else. The refrigerator hums the same way it always has. The dog still barks at the mail carrier at the same time. And somehow that ordinariness is what unsettles you most. Proof that a house can keep running exactly as normal, while one specific thing inside it has quietly changed shape. You've never had to translate your own house like this before, and the fact that you're doing it now is its own kind of answer, even if you're not ready to hear it yet. This is the level almost nobody remembers clearly afterward. It doesn't feel like a beginning. It feels like a Tuesday that went badly. You go to school. You come home. The porch light is on. The smell of dinner is normal. For now, that's enough to convince you level 2, the ultimatum. The second time it comes up, something's different even if the words are nearly identical. Maybe it's flat instead of loud, and flat is worse. Yelling means someone's still in the middle of feeling it. Flat means they've already decided. You have until Friday to figure something out. This is the moment the threat stops being a mood and becomes a deadline. You open your phone and scroll through contacts like you've never actually looked at them before. Not as people to talk to, but as potential shelter. A friend 2 streets over. An aunt who's always liked you more than she's supposed to admit. You stare at a name for a full minute without texting it, because texting it would make the possibility real in a way that just thinking about it doesn't. Underneath that, a colder audit is running. Your part-time job clears about $90 a week after taxes, enough for gas and a phone bill, nowhere close to rent. You have a learner's permit, not a license. Your best friend's parents don't allow overnight guests on weeknights. You start noticing, for maybe the first time, how much of your life has quietly depended on a bedroom that was never actually guaranteed. At lunch the next day, you test the idea out loud on a friend, phrased as a joke. What if I just moved in with you guys? And watch their face for half a second longer than the joke requires, gauging whether it landed as funny or as a real question. It's both, and you both know it. You are not alone in this math, even though it feels that way at 1 in the morning. Researchers at Chapin Hall found that 1 in 10 young adults between 18 and 25, and at least 1 in 30 teenagers between 13 and 17, experience some form of homelessness in a given year. Being told to leave, couch surfing, running, all of it counted. Somewhere in your city right now, someone your age is doing the exact same quiet inventory of who might say yes. Late that night, alone with your phone under the covers, you type things into a search bar you never thought you'd need. What to do if your parents kick you out? Can a 17-year-old rent a room? Youth shelter near me. The results are a mix of hotlines, legal disclaimers, and forum threads from other teenagers asking the exact same question in the exact same quiet panic at the exact same hour, which is somehow both comforting and terrifying at once. You test the water at home in small ways too, staying out later, floating the idea of visiting your aunt for a while, watching your parents' face for a reaction. Sometimes it breaks the tension. Sometimes the next argument doesn't feel like a warning anymore. It feels like a countdown. Level 3. Packing somewhere past the ultimatum. The fight stops being just words and becomes a physical decision. What fits in a bag? You pull a duffel from the back of your closet and unzip it on the bed, and every item you touch turns into a small, high-stakes negotiation. Charger. A change of clothes you can layer if it gets cold. Your school ID, because tomorrow is happening whether you're home tonight or not. If you're on any kind of medication, you grab it first, before anything else, because forgetting it becomes someone else's problem to solve later, at the worst possible time. Then come the documents, if you can get to them. A driver's license or state ID, a social security card, a birth certificate if you know where it's kept. You don't think of these as important papers until the moment you might not have access to them anymore. And then they become the most valuable objects in the entire house, worth more than anything else you own. You look around at everything you're leaving behind and start dividing it without meaning to. Things that matter, things that don't, things you'll probably never see again. The desk gets emptier. The shelf gets emptier. The room starts to look like it's rehearsing for you not being in it. Even your shoes get a decision. The sturdy ones over the ones you actually like. Because comfort matters less right now than not falling apart 3 blocks from here. You reach for one thing that has zero practical use. A notebook, a photo, a hoodie that still smells like your own detergent. And you hesitate over it longer than anything else you've packed. It won't keep you warm or prove who you are. You take it anyway, because leaving it behind feels like agreeing to become someone smaller. Your hands aren't quite steady anymore as you zip the bag closed. You test its weight on your shoulder, heavier than you expected, lighter than an entire life should be. You sit on the edge of the bed for one more minute, half expecting a knock that says never mind. Some people get that knock. A lot of people zip the bag the rest of the way instead. Level 4. The threshold. The actual leaving is almost always quieter than you'd think. The yelling from earlier is long gone by now, replaced by something colder and more tired. You carry the bag down the hallway, and the floor creaks in places you swear it's never creaked before. Your parent might be in the living room, arms crossed, jaw set, determined not to be the one who backs down first. Or they might be at the sink, back turned, unable to watch this part happen. A sibling might watch from a cracked door, too young or too scared to say anything at all. Neither reaction tells you what you need to know, which is whether this is temporary or not. You reach the front door. Your hand is on the knob longer than it needs to be, because some part of you is still waiting for the scene to reverse itself. A hand on your shoulder. A weight. Sometimes that happens. Often it doesn't. You step outside, and the door clicks shut behind you with a sound that has more finality in it than it should for something so small. A small mechanical click that somehow outweighs everything said in the argument before it. The air is colder than you expected, or the daylight is more ordinary than it has any right to be. A car passes with its windows up. Somebody 2 houses down is dragging a trash can to the curb, completely unaware that you just lost your key to the building behind you. You look back once. The porch light is still on. You adjust the bag on your shoulder and start walking, because moving feels better than standing still with what just happened. Level 5. The first night, contrary to what people assume, this almost never starts with sleeping outside. Most teenagers who get kicked out land somewhere first. A friend's couch, a cousin's floor, a car in a parking lot for a few hours until something better opens up. Researchers call this doubled up, which just means staying with someone else because you don't have a stable place of your own. And it's the most common and most invisible form of youth homelessness in the country. You send the text you've been drafting in your head for the last hour. Hey, is it cool if I crash tonight? Kind of a long story. The reply when it comes feels disproportionately huge. Relief that hits like a physical wave, followed almost immediately by a strange embarrassment at needing to feel that relieved. Once you're there, you learn the unspoken rules fast. You keep your bag zipped in a corner instead of unpacking. You take a shorter shower than you normally would. You say no to food you actually want, because you don't want to be the reason the grocery bill goes up this week. You say thank you more times in one evening than you usually say in a month. The couch smells like someone else's laundry detergent and a dog that isn't yours. The blanket they hand you is soft but unfamiliar, and you lie there listening to a house make sounds you don't recognize yet. A different refrigerator hum, different footsteps overhead, a floor that settles at a different pitch than the one you grew up hearing. If nobody answers, or if you don't have anyone to ask, there's a number built for exactly this moment, 1-800-RUNAWAY. The National Runaway Safe Line answers it every hour of every day, free and confidential, and they can help you find somewhere safe for tonight. No judgment, no lecture, and no requirement that you explain everything up front. Night leap, when it comes, isn't like sleep at home. You wake up disoriented, forgetting for half a second where you are, and then it comes back. Not your room, not your house. And that reset happens most mornings for a while, whether you're on a couch, an air mattress, or a reclined car seat. You check your phone before you're even fully awake, and the absence of a message from home says almost as much as one would have. Level 6. The mask. Once the first few nights stretch into a rotation, a couch, a spare room, a relative's floor. You develop something like a second face for daylight hours. You still go to school. You still show up for your shift. You wash up somewhere borrowed, put on clothes pulled out of a duffel bag that's starting to smell like everywhere but home, and walk into rooms where everyone assumes you slept in your own bed last night. You sit through class doing math that has nothing to do with the lesson. How many days until this friend's patience runs out? Whether the $4 lunch is worth what's left in your account, where you'll shower tomorrow if your cousin isn't around. At work, your manager asks if everything's okay because you've been quieter than usual, and you say you're just tired, which is true in a way that leaves out almost everything. You clock in on time anyway, because those hours are the only thing standing between you and running out of options completely. In class, when a teacher goes around the room asking everyone to describe their weekend in one sentence for a warm-up exercise, you spend the 10 seconds before your turn deciding which version of the truth is safe to say out loud, and land on something short and boring on purpose. When someone asks the ordinary question, "How was your weekend? Is your mom coming to the game?" You've learned the art of the half answer. It's complicated, staying somewhere else for now. Most people let it go. A few push gently, "Wait, staying where? Is everything okay?" And you decide in real time, based on nothing more than their face, how much of the truth they've earned. Word travels anyway. A teacher clocks that you're wearing the same 3 outfits on rotation. A friend's parent asks a question you weren't ready for while handing you a plate at dinner. You get good, faster than you ever wanted to be, at reading whether a question is curiosity or concern, and whether either one is safe to answer honestly. Level 7. The long stretch. If this goes on past the first couple of weeks, the whole shape of the problem changes. The question stops being "where tonight" and becomes "how long can any of this actually hold?" Arrangements that felt open-ended start showing their edges. The friend whose mom said, "stay as long as you need," starts mentioning bills, or a sibling who wants their room back, and you feel the exact moment the math stops working in your favor. So you move again, to a different couch, a distant cousin, somewhere you wouldn't have considered in week 1. Chapin Hall's national data backs up how common this is. Of teenagers who experience it, 42% go through it more than once in the same year. This is rarely a single bad night. It's usually a pattern that loops, house to house, month to month. School is where this can either get much harder or get real help. Under federal law, the McKinney-Vento Act, students experiencing housing instability have the right to stay enrolled at their same school even after a move, along with transportation to get there. No proof of address required. A school counselor or the district's homeless liaison can set this up in a single short conversation. And most teenagers in this exact situation never find out it exists, simply because nobody ever tells them the words to ask. You start carrying your whole life in one bag as a matter of habit rather than emergency. Winter coat if the season calls for it. A phone charger you never let out of your sight. A small folder of documents you've started keeping together on purpose now, instead of scattered across a room you don't live in anymore. Moving itself becomes its own small skill. You learn to pack in under 10 minutes. You learn which questions a new house asks on day 1. What time is quiet time? Is there a lock on the bathroom door? What happens if you're not home by curfew? And you answer them fast and agreeably, because being easy to have around is the closest thing you have to rent contact with your parents. If there's any, gets complicated in its own way. A text that just says, "How are you?" A call you let ring out because you don't know what mood is waiting on the other end. A voicemail you replay twice before deciding whether it deserves a reply tonight or tomorrow. Some relationships start thawing here, slowly, awkwardly, one short phone call at a time. Others stay frozen, both sides waiting for the other to move first. Level 8. The redefinition of home. Eventually, in 3 months, in a year, sometimes longer, the acute part ends. You land somewhere with a lease, or a reconciled relationship, or a roommate situation that actually holds. You get a key again. A bed nobody can ask you to vacate by Friday. But something about how you see home doesn't fully reset. You might keep a bag half-packed longer than you need to, just in case. You might keep your documents in one folder by the door, out of habit, years after you needed to grab them fast. You might notice yourself reading a room's mood the second you walk into it, an old instinct that never quite unlearns itself. None of that makes you broken. It makes you someone who found out early that safety can have an expiration date, and adjusted accordingly. Your view of your parents changes too, in a way that's harder to admit out loud. The idea of them as an unconditional safety net doesn't survive this fully intact. In its place is something more complicated. People who hit a limit and made a choice, for reasons that might have made sense to them, and still altered your life anyway. Some relationships rebuild slowly from there, boundary by boundary, phone call by phone call. Some don't, and get replaced by a version of family built out of the people who actually showed up when it counted. Think back to that kitchen table. The salt shaker, the flat voice, the sentence you didn't believe. The argument itself probably lasted 20 minutes. Everything after it, the bag, the door, the couches, the mask, the long stretch of nights that didn't belong to anywhere. That part can last for years. And somewhere in the middle of all of it, without a single dramatic moment to mark it, you become the person who builds the next home yourself. One key, one lease, one saved paycheck at a time. You didn't get to keep the house you were given, but you find out, the hard way, that you were always capable of building one that's actually yours. Years from now, on some ordinary afternoon, You might drive past that old street without meaning to. The porch light might still be on. You might feel almost nothing, or you might feel everything at once, and either reaction is allowed, because the house never stopped being where you're from. It just stopped being where you live. Somewhere between the door closing and the day you finally stopped flinching at raised voices, you learned the one thing nobody could take a bag away from: how to make a place safe, on your own, whenever you needed to again.